Welcome to the Bible Study Girl podcast. This is Sarita. You may know me as Bible Study Girl. And the first hello and welcome you received on this podcast was from none other than the executive producer, Bible Study Brother.
Hello, people. It is I, Bible Study Brother, but I'm also known as Icarus Gray over at Gray Area Anime. But this is the most wonderful podcast of your day. We're glad to have you back. If you'd like a soundtrack for this life that you walk every day, you should go and listen to Icarus Gray music on all streaming platforms.
Great way to segue your musical pursuits into your introduction, brother. So today, every saint in the room and ain't in the room that's listening, send up a prayer. It's about to get real today. We are diving deep into a blog recap. We have alluded to this subject several times throughout the course of the podcast. And I know we've had a discussion about it before, but this is the first time that we're actually discussing the specific blogs that Bible Study Brother and I wrote after we had our historic upsetting fallout. So you guys are really in for it today. I'm going to say a treat. It's going to be a treat, and we'll see where this conversation leads. If you have not had the opportunity to read the blog and you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. I got you. Go over to BibleStudyGirl.com. The blog that we're talking about today is entitled The Ties That Bind. So if you click on the magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner, then type in the word, The Ties That Bind, the blog will pop right up. This is a longer blog. You can tell I was emotional when I wrote it, child. So this is a longer blog. Typically, I try to keep them short and sweet, something you can read while you're brushing your teeth or something, but this one is a little more in depth. So what we do with the blog recap is Bible Study Brother typically reads the blog right before we start recording, and you guys get a fresh take on his perspective and things that he came away with when he read the blog. Then after he tells you guys the nuggets that he got from the blog, which is always refreshing to me, I jump in and I let you guys know how I felt at the time that I wrote the blog. And then I catch you up on how I feel current day, if my feelings have changed, if they remain the same. So that's the way the blog recap works. You guys should be very familiar with it by now. So I'm excited to let Bible Study Brother take it away and tell us what he got when he read The Ties That Bind. What things stuck out to you?
Okay. So to start off, the first thing that I got while reading Ties That Bind was how much I've grown, because younger me or younger in the process of all of this would have just been slightly more offended by, because like I know what everything is behind the fight or whatever.
Right.
The fight wasn't behind the decision I made. And that decision caused a lot of division between us or whatever. And the crux of all of that in terms of the decision that caused all that was my trust of you. And how much in my mind I trusted and just value you. And I remember being at that point, and again, it'll kind of get explained more in my post. I hope, I don't know. I haven't read it in a while because I try to stay away from a fight with a 10-foot pole. But I thought about that for a long time. You know, sometimes I keep forgetting that part, that my biggest mistake was trusting like your perception of me way more than reality of different things, and the reality of the fact that you don't always, for the most part, agree with me. And not realizing how much of your own traumas that were imbued in these things in that moment, and like the weight of that decision, and just kind of how um negligent it can feel if you're not understanding what I was doing, and given the position that you were in at that time. So I get through all of that. I go past the picking sides part, which again I said a lot and have said a lot in terms of like I know, because I'm like, I'm not that person. I expect people who, if you ride with me or you loyal with me, I just expect people to be loyal, period, or unbiased, just in general. But in regards to people picking sides, I didn't see, because of how you probably, to me, presented everything, I didn't see anybody that was gonna be like, yeah, outside of people who either understood me and could not understand our dynamics and stuff or whatever.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like it was a whole bunch of people who could even spiritually kind of like tap in. I was literally kind of just by myself in that point, because I could present the situation to people and people would understand it. Either you understood or you didn't, or it didn't make sense, because it just, you would have to know the gravity of our situation, and then you have to know our backgrounds and everything else for any of this stuff to make sense. Because for most
Right.
people, I think this just seems like a non sequitur. It would not even seem like something that should be something that we should be upset about. And I've thought about it for a while, because I thought about explaining the situation in full. I had like prayed on it in a lot of different things in terms of the testimony. But when I realized more and more, especially after reading this, and I think that was God's last confirmation about how the why isn't really needed.
You're
Um,
talking about the why of our
yeah, the
disagreement.
why of our disagreement in terms of
Okay.
explaining or sharing that testimony, because it don't, that portion of it doesn't really matter, because that wasn't really the fight.
And that is my, we talked about briefly, and that was my position. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it and I'm really going to say what I want to say,
Um,
and it's there. And so I don't think the why, like you said, I don't think the why of the disagreement is
because the why wasn't it. I mean,
important. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's important. I'm gonna let you finish your
yeah.
turn so then I can speak
Um,
my turn. But
because
I don't feel like the why, knowing why or what we were arguing about, is not gonna change.
because my thing is, at that point, like, I know that I'm past that point. Um, and also it's more about the lessons learned, and the fact that the situation in and of itself was meant to grow us, and understand the separation that we needed. Because if you look at just the situation itself, if you, like I said, if you present it to anybody else without explaining, like the fact that we would have to go so deep to explain the different dynamics of our connections to get someone to the point of being like, well, why is this a thing, is to me.
To you, and I'm gonna
Um,
say to you.
and that's fine.
Because like I said in the blog post, I still don't agree. Like, I don't care how you dress it up or dress it down, I still don't agree, but we are still in a good place. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not mad, but I still don't agree. That hasn't changed for me. But we supposed to get to my part at the
no.
end. Going on.
And I mean, even with that, like I said, I've also come to the point to where it's like I don't care. And never will in that regard. And not to like, and I'm not like puffing my chest up, but I just mean in that sense of like, in that learning to agree to disagree, the overall purpose, and like what I learned and said, what I was trying to say, because the devil trying to distract me, to get into what I appreciated and understanding, was like when I got to the end of the blog. And normally, because it's easy to hurt my feelings, it's easy to get me riled up, it's easy to get me whatever, because I don't, like, I'm also not an agree to disagree type person, but I especially, it's harder with you, because there are hardly ever really any situations where you don't feel like you're right or you felt like you were right in a situation.
Mhm.
So to like get to the end and it's like, these are the things that I understood that I was doing wrong. And I also understood what God wanted from our relationship and the fact that what um my brother does, and like it made me feel like I am important to you, because a lot of times I think sometimes I forget that I am actually important to you because of the
Why do you
weight
say that?
because of the weight of you trying to be my parent before realizing that you're my sibling. And that wasn't something that happened until after this. Like there was a
I think you're 100% correct. But I'm gonna let you say your part because I
yeah. Um because a lot of it, like when I think about like what were my biggest issues in terms of growing up or whatever, sometimes I never had a male figure that was really instrumental in telling me how to do stuff. I've had spots where people were around, but it wasn't anything consistent. It wasn't like, yo, let's go out Friday to go, watch a football game or whatever. I didn't have those kind of people in my life.
you watch football.
I watch basketball, but I mean, I watch
Okay.
football from time to time. Like I watch it if it's on. I think I watched more sports in the past, working at the gym, working downtown, and then like that's more when I started to watch more sports. But like I would have liked to do all of those things. I just had no one to do them with.
Right.
And so all I had was y'all was for so many years. And if y'all felt right about something, even if I had a good point, even if it was something that technically I was right about, if y'all agreed I wasn't right, I wasn't right.
Okay.
And to always kind of be outnumbered in voting is stressful, to say the least. And it's also stressful when I'm expecting, like siblings are supposed to do things, like even though that we had a level of things that was seen that were sibling things that you do, whether it's going on my first date was with my sister. Now
Yeah, we weren't dating each other. It was a double date.
yeah, I don't, y'all weird, but I get it, I get the clarification, but
I just wanted to say it because
I
Mama
got it.
would be like, "It sound like y'all was dating each other."
Oh Lord. um so we did stuff that siblings would do, but it wasn't like the separation had already been, because you were older than me. You're 5 years older than me. So you already had separation. You had your own friends, you had your own lifestyle. So there's a portion of it that is we're doing stuff together, but there's also a portion of it that it helped you be able to do the things that you were doing.
Oh, correct. Absolutely. If
But
I take him there, let me go.
but I don't look at it like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Right.
thinking this. So then when I finally get to adulthood, or what I consider to be adulthood in terms of being a man or whatever, and then like having those first like real kind of fights with you about me and mom's relationship and everything else, it's like I don't have anywhere to even talk about what I'm going through, because I can't explain nothing to you, because you just like, you shouldn't be doing this. And it's not like it's more like a, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to be a man with somebody who don't understand that,
Right.
and two people who don't understand that. And then it's just gonna seem like I'm just over here acting out. And I'm like, no, I want to make a decision that is not based on whether or not you think it's okay. And I wasn't confident in that, especially not post divorce and post having to come home from college, defeated and not with grades and everything, because I didn't focus.
Do you feel like you're more confident in that now, or is that something you still struggling with?
No, I'm good now. I think you saying I still don't agree, and like that triggered me a bit, but I just had to like, hey, chill out. It's cool. Like you didn't do the things you did to be agreed with. You didn't do the things you did to when y'all finally fixed everything, to like finally have somebody come to your side or whatever the case may be, you made the decision because that's the decision you wanted to make. And if they
Correct.
don't agree, that's okay. Like getting to that point, I think is the hardest portion of it still. Because y'all are all I have sometimes in terms of like things that go on or whatever. I'm building up to allowing other people in terms of whether it's Kanae and like other friends to have that kind of connection. But sometimes I don't have what I think you have with Chantel. You know what I'm saying? Like
You don't?
not really. You would be my
Mm,
Chantel.
gotcha.
And like and therefore it's it's a conflict of interest at that point.
But I can tell
Um
you that here's the thing. You were talking about our relationship as siblings, and Chantel and I are friends, but she does not co-sign everything I do. And she will say to me very bluntly, we may not be friends after this, but you need to know XYZ. She does not agree with every decision I make.
I don't
Now, I will also tell you this, like earlier in our friendship, she had to make that speech a lot more often.
uh
What did that necessarily mean that I was not gonna do what I was gonna do? But her thing has always been like, I'm not gonna leave the blood on my hands. I'm gonna tell you what's right. You can do whatever you want to do, but I don't agree with this,
I no, I didn't mean like in terms of agreeing. I just mean a person that when you say it, I don't feel like you're just trying to like demean me or belittle me because you think I'm beneath you. Like
Right.
when you would do it, even if you were right, like it just feels like you
It
trying to
was
be.
demeaning. It wasn't
Yeah,
like
it
we
wasn't.
make
It
I
wasn't
got
like,
you.
oh, that's oh, I understand what you're saying. It's like, no, you trying to play me, and I don't like that. It's like it's not a like I'm
I
not
can get
never
that.
gonna
I
understand.
I definitely get that because I can be very authoritative and like it is what it is. So
So
I
I
get
mean,
that.
more so just having a friend that like does not make you, and that's why I be telling you something like, and because you're still the only person. Like a lot of times, even when I say I'm not gonna say something about whatever, I still end up saying something because you it.
Right.
Because I still need somebody who at least understands the mental capacity of what I'm saying and where I'm currently at with it, even though it's just gonna inflame me more because it's like talking to a mirror sometimes. So
This is a quick aside. I was listening to a
yeah,
podcast a couple weeks ago, and the man was saying in marriage, I mean, me and you ain't married, but he was saying that a lot of times single people don't work on their issues because they don't have a true reflection of what they have going on.
yeah,
But when you're married, you have a full length mirror in front of you every
hmm
day that's telling you like what's wrong and what you need to work on.
hmm
So when you said it was a mirror, I mean, we're not married, but if you want me to tell
hmm
you, I'll tell you.
Nah, I just mean in terms of us having the same kind of thoughts a lot of times in that regard. So it's not like I'm getting something new because there are times where it's like if it's something that upsets me, 9 times out of 10, it's probably gonna upset you too.
Yeah.
In the same way that it's upsetting me. So therefore I don't really gain anything that I like need because I'm just like, and then I end up stumbling further because now my anger has been confirmed by somebody who understands like, oh, they would have been mad too. And now I'm like, but getting to the end of it, like I said, I don't have a lot of moments until like reading stuff like this. So I'm like, oh, I really am important. And that means something to know that and hear that from the source because it's not like it's said a lot because it wasn't. It was just, it's not that you wouldn't understand that my sister loved me, but you would not understand like if you were a person that y'all can have thoughts that stand at the same height or understandings of things of that nature. It always felt like, like you're under somebody. Like it's kind of like being a bird. You can fly, but the other bird is like, no, 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 chill out, chill out, chill out. And then they go fly, and it's like, bro, I can do that. And they don't look back to see whether or not you can. They just are assuming you can't. And then it's like when you say you can, it's like, well, show me in this way that is specific only to how I fly. And it's like, I don't fly like that though. I fly like this. And so
So I'm hearing that throughout our relationship, you feel maybe stifled, like I baby you,
Mm, that would be
like I don't
kind.
allow you to soar.
It's more like you don't see, like we were joking about this Facebook post that I made earlier, when people say, if you say you have a baby brother and then the baby brother is 30 whatever, like people are like, how is that your baby brother? Like that kind of disconnect is the, like, I am somehow always, and I'll always be your baby brother, but like, I'm an adult. I think things, I do things, I have desires, I have wants, I have places that I know I need to grow. And I'm learning those things, but like you trying to force me or make it like your job to make me grow only disconnects us.
Do you feel like I currently do that?
No. I mean, now I think, like I said, after the fight, um you, because of your cutoff spirit, and I think there was a point, and this is God, where it's like when you did, he's like, well, all right, you just gonna fail, because the instant assumption was, if I'm not doing it, just like, it's probably not gonna be right. And I'm almost positive that was like the whole thing, like even when you said like you just want to get sick because it's all gonna be their fault, and it's like it's still in that moment of, well, now everything that I think is going to happen, and it's going to be this way, and you're going to see how much you needed me. There was like, until we got back together and I started to like do things in my walk that kind of started to show you, oh, this is how he handles this, or this is how he does this, or he can do this and he's doing it without it being this thing where I think I have to tell him or he won't know. You started to see me differently, or actually see me, because I don't think you saw me as a person capable of things. Because the height of whatever the standard is that you would set for me was so drastically high.
So you feel like I have very high expectations?
I feel like you have your expectations that are based on you. Um, which is to say, even if you know I'm not the scholar you are, you still look at things from that scope.
Okay.
So it's like, you just do this. You just do this. It's the same thing I think I do. I was just talking off air about this with somebody about rapping, and I'm like, when I'm explaining it to people, it's easy to me. It's hard to understand how to explain it to somebody. I'm like, well, you just do this. You just tell your story, or you just ride the beat, not knowing that that can be hard for somebody.
I will say this. I have a lot of things that come second nature to me. I think the older I get, the more I realize it's not second nature for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody cannot just do this or cannot just do that. And I just assume that if I can do it, then everybody else can do it. So I definitely think there's validity in that statement. And I also, by the same token, I think what you're saying about me and my standards are, um, and I have high expectations of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't meet my own expectations of myself ever. If you ask me how something looks, I can always tell you what's wrong with it. And I think that translates into my relationship with you,
Mm-hmm.
um, and into any relationship I have, really. I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna leave it there. But I'm gonna let you finish saying what you wanted to say.
And then the last thing I think it was that point of when you stopped trying, because and you said it so eloquently, when you stopped trying to fix me. And I could never put that in my head, but that's like what it felt like. I'm like, bro, what is, like, and you did it in such a way that it's like, I see all of these things that are wrong with you and I need to fix it. And it's what led interactions in certain places. And instead of it being nurturing, it's like you trying to fix something. Like, now I feel like something's wrong with me.
You want me to be 100% honest with you?
Go ahead.
it's it's like not funny, but it's funny. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna say. Okay, so when I moved back from Houston,
Mm-hmm.
I had a plan, man. I was going to mold you. That was on my
Oh no, I know
to-do list.
because I remember having. You wanna know why I knew that? Because it was the first little argument. There was one argument we had one time, and it's like I understood, and this is where I started to like have real like earnest beef with my sister because it was the first time I kind of noticed. So I had invited some friends over to the apartment. We were hanging in my room. Mom comes home. That I hadn't said to her that I was having friends over or whatever. And so because she didn't know them and hadn't met them yet under whatever, I was now in the most trouble of my life because all I know is hooligans that's gonna steal from us. Um and even if it was just a simple conversation that could happen, it got gassed by you and her at the same time. So we ended up having to like leave because at this point I was like, I've literally done nothing wrong.
Live here when y'all were in the apartment.
Huh?
I did not live here when
No,
y'all
what
were
I'm
in the
saying. No, I didn't
apartment.
say
Okay.
you were here. I'm saying like,
Okay.
but this anyway. So anyway, so of course I leave. I don't remember if you ended up calling me, but we ended up talking about it later or whatever. Like around the time because we was a year after this happened is when we get the house. And so we ended up talking and we're sitting there and I'm just like, I don't know what it was if you had like called me or said something about it or made me feel hey, and I remember just being at the house and I remember having this conversation. I was like, and it wasn't until this that I think you understood what I was saying, but I know I said this way before this conversation. I was like, you sometimes I was like, I feel like we argue because sometimes you seem to think you're my parent. And I'm like, you're not. And you sat there and you were kind of like, and you did the thing you do when you're not listening and you're just and that's what, like I'm saying, when you probably had the molding plan already in your head to where you weren't even listening to nothing I was saying at that point. It was just like, I hear what he's saying, but plan's going to be initiated at some point. And I'm like, like I feel like, cause it was one of those, okay, we haven't really been talking cause we hadn't really talked cause we had certain situations where, like I said, I felt away.
We had several fights, several disagreements, several periods of not talking to each other before our big fight.
Right.
Several.
And each thing for me was based in like, hey, there's a difference between you saying something that I need to learn and kind of an understanding of something. There's an also difference between everything you saying being, like I said, you're like, I ain't for you to mold. And like, again, like I don't do that. Like you manipulate a lot of things that I do in a sisterly way of like putting your gas up, doing this or doing whatever. But there are other parts where it's like, that's intrinsically me where I would fight back and not know what I was fighting back against. And it was just, it's an exhausting existence when you're already dealing with self-esteem issues on yourself because of how you look, where you fit in the world, what your friend groups are. You're continuously scared of different situations because everything else is kind of garnered or moved and placed before you. In being the baby in a lot of different ways, there were so many things that I didn't like have to do because they were like done for me. And it's my father, if you're going to listen to daddy issues, just wasn't like the dad that is like, okay, I learned I learned how to be confident or walk in this or walk in that. That just wasn't his bag. So in the moments where I wasn't with my mom or my sister, I was by myself, I didn't have anybody like, hey, go and do this. So I spent time talking to myself and feeling like, okay, well, somebody is going to do this because they do these things for me. And if they don't do it, that must mean that I'm not ready or whatever. And that's kind of how you like associate like growing in manhood and stuff. So with the self-esteem issues, it was spiritually hard to even find what I wanted to do in anything because I felt like if it wasn't something that, you or mom did, it was gonna be wrong. And because I didn't care what he did, his stuff didn't matter because that's not who I spent my time with. That's not who I was looking and hoping for validation from and the things that I wanted to do. It was y'all. That was it. Like I would talk with my friends, but I knew at the end of the day when it came to like a big situation, if she ain't fooling with it, then I can't do it. And or if they feel this way about it, then I'm probably not gonna have something that's rewarding about it.
Okay.
So, but overall, just the thing, like I said, that I learned the most is like when you have these moments where I do know that I matter to you outside of just being something like I'm not a project, I'm not your child, I'm not anything other than your brother, and you can start to see me on a standing that is an equal eye level, and I'm allowed to be and kind of grow in a way that isn't like, okay, you can fly. Like I be stumbling and falling too. Why should I be so harsh on you in your stumbles and falls, or how you're doing these things in a way of like, it's so wrong that I need to fix it. So overall, sorry for being long with it. This is just, again, it's all kinds of stuff,
Long
emotional
story,
and
still
whatever.
long.
Yeah,
Go
long
ahead.
story still longer. It's just that's the life, and the fight was just one of them things that like I was like, you have to stand. Like you never will if you don't trust me more than you trust them. At least to in terms of everything you're doing. If you do not trust me more than you trust them, and that's hard because that was all I trusted. So, like really, in terms of earnestly. But go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, brother, for your transparency and for being willing to share your experience from our fight, uh, reading about our fight from my perspective, and then giving me some feedback. I think it's important. You know, at the time I wrote that, you had been married a couple years by that point, I would say. I wrote it in 2019. When you get married?
I had been married 2 years by this
Okay.
point.
So we fell out, and I will say though, eh, we have gone longer periods of time without talking to each other than we
Mm-hmm.
had when we had our major fallout.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, that's one thing that's so amazing about the whole experience, because I do have a cutoff spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a way of protecting myself from further hurt. At times, it is definitely appropriate to cut people off. Um, and one thing our fight really, because we had been to therapy as a family maybe for 2 years before this point.
We did like 2 sessions.
No,
Um,
I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking
no,
about like as an entire family.
I'm saying the three of us had only gone to like two because uh and I think I maybe went to one by myself, maybe. But like, and here's how I remember, because as soon as we did like it might have been more than two, but it wasn't a lot. It was, we went, he gave us some revelations. He told me to go to like this group, uh this like
You did not go, did you?
men's grief group. I never went, and then I was like, I'm not going back. Now I do need to go back to therapy in general. I have been planning to. I just need to do it. But
So I'm gonna
yeah.
say, so we started family therapy after Uncle Michael was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm saying, as a family, probably 2 years before this point, we had been going to therapy together, like taking real issues that we were having and talking to the therapist about it. And he gave us specific exercises, specific tools to help us figure out how to function as a family in a healthy way. So we have these tools, we have these things to help us function in a healthy way. Are we using them? Nah, hit and miss. We might do it one time, but like this mess is hard. And who wants to, we just gonna keep fighting the way we've been fighting and move on with life. And so our me and Joe's big argument was a big turning point for me in my personal therapy journey because my therapist challenged me to unpack a lot of my unhealthy behaviors. Because one thing he really hammered home, and it has been so true, is that yes, I might have the mindset that I want to fix everybody, but I can't. The only person in the variable that I can fix or change is me. And just, and really looking at myself is a hard thing, number one. And it's not a change that happens overnight. It is a change that I have to continually every day think about the decisions I'm going to make, how I'm going to speak to people, filter whether or not this is something that I even need to address or if this is something that is a me problem and it's something I need to fix internally. And so me and Joe having our big disagreement was a major push for me to get into more intensive therapy and to really start doing some intensive work. Did it feel good? No. And I think a lot of times people shy away from therapy or even the thought of therapy because how can somebody else tell me about myself? Well, we read in the Bible all the time that iron sharpens iron. That doesn't sound like something warm, cuddly, and cozy. When you hear iron going against each other, it rings in the ears. So it's not something that is a comfortable experience, but it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't want that. We even talked about my relationship with Chantel. I listen. She's very candid with me about her opinions and what she thinks is right and what she thinks is wrong. And I'm candid with her as well. I also realize you can't have that kind of relationship with everybody. Everybody's not capable. Everybody is not equipped. But I do believe everybody needs somebody in their life that will be honest with them, open with them, and willing to share with them, hey, this is not going in the right direction. So, like I said, me and Joe's major argument was a catalyst for me to really start working on myself. And it was difficult. I have strong opinions about things. Joe said I always feel like I'm right. And I do. I do. But I'm also willing to listen to feedback from people. I'm always willing to listen to feedback from people. I'm not ever like, okay, I'm right. And that's just the end of it. I want to know why you feel the way you do.
Yeah.
I need for you to explain it to me. And I don't mean it to be patronizing, but like, I really want you to explain to me, like, help me. Like, tell me why this is not, tell me what you think is wrong about it or why you think this is wrong.
Yeah, I think sometimes it would just be the fact that it would feel more like you would listen to feedback from people you felt could give you understandable feedback. And if it did make sense within, like you had it would sometimes feel like I would have to prove instances of when you said something that hurt my feelings, or I'd have to go through not one. I can't just talk about the instance right here. I had to explain or explore, like, I had to go through a list, and if I couldn't go through the list, then it wasn't valid. And then by that point, because I'm upset or I'm frustrated, I think that like used to like really just it triggers my soul would be I'm upset. There's an emotional response to not being listened to or being patronized. And instead of just stopping or chilling out or saying like, hey, we should probably chill out because nothing good is going to come from this, there would be more patronizing. And sometimes y'all would like make fun of me, or just because of how, if you couldn't fathom whatever it was that was causing me to be so angry, upset, mad, crying, whatever the case may be, if I don't feel like it's valid, I'm not giving you anything that's going to help you get out of this what you're feeling. And this just look dumb to me. You just look stupid, and I'm gonna act. It looks stupid. It's funny. I'ma laugh, and
And that's what
it
you're
would just
saying
be
is
like,
very true. Again, it didn't come, it's not something that came naturally to me. I had to have
yeah,
somebody say to me, this is a better way to handle this situation. And then I had to put that into practice.
yeah,
So it's not something and it's not something I'm proud of. And it's not something I want to celebrate or act like it didn't happen because it did, honey. I would be like, that don't even make sense. Move on down the line. But again, those are things that I literally had to work on because it was second nature for me to be that way. I'm not saying it was healthy, but that's definitely who I was. Now, since our disagreement, I have done a lot of work on Sarita with the help of the Holy Ghost, like guarding my tongue because I have a sharp tongue and I know that about myself. And like you said, even getting to the point where I could say, we can revisit this because I was a no, we're going to handle it right now.
yeah,
It is right now. We're going to handle it right now. And that was always my go to, my response. It took therapy for me to get to a point to understand. Number one, to be empathetic to somebody else's feelings. I can't tell somebody they have the right or don't have the right to feel a certain way. Those are their feelings. Um, and for some people, that may be second nature, but when I'm pushed up against the wall, I'm not really messed up about your feelings. I just want us to go ahead and hash this out. So it took growth and it took work for me to get to the point I'm at now. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. There's so many other things that I need to work on, so many other things I need to
that's fun.
dig to
Not
dig
that. Sorry, my bad. That was poor timing. But
uh, so many other things I need to work on, so many other things I need to dig deeper and really like explore and figure out like why do you do this and why are you this way and what is a healthy way to be. That's my goal. And I believe that if we hadn't had a disagreement, I would not have taken the time to go deeper, to really ask myself like what's the most important thing,
mhm.
like being right or like having a healthy relationship. And I think one thing for sure that our disagreement taught me is that we can have differences of opinion and still remain in fellowship, like, and it not be a contentious thing and not just remain in fellowship but have a good relationship. um when we had our argument, I definitely wasn't there. When we had our argument, my thought process was, it is what it is. I'm here. I think what I think. I feel what I feel. And that's what it is.
Yeah,
And that's what it is. But it took, um, it really did. It honestly, it took me humbling myself and really looking to see, Lord, what would you have of me? How would you have me handle this situation? And I'm going to say this too, and we've discussed it before, but I know we had a family member telling us that yeah, I don't need to go to therapy. That just blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. We absolutely needed therapy because this is like cycles. We continue to do the same cycles in this family. I don't want this anymore. So I need for somebody to tell me a different way and a better way. And it can be scary because, my go to, my grab is how I typically handle conflict. That's what feels good to me and that's what feels comfortable, but it's not necessarily what's good for me. So I always like, I'm a big advocate for therapy. And I'm also a big advocate for having a good relationship with a therapist. For me, I love the Lord. Jesus is the Lord of my life. So I needed a Christian counselor or a Christian therapist, somebody that knew Jesus, um, and knew Jesus in a real way and that could give me scripture and practical application that I could use in my everyday life. That's one thing I love about, to me, a good sermon is not hooping and hollering. It's when you can give me the word of God and then give me practical things that I can do. Because I have to live. I have to walk out in the streets every day. I have to make it through this life. And so I need something practical that I can take and I can use. Because who wants to go to church and remain the same? Now, a lot of people do it, but really and truly, like the goal is for you to get better and you to go out and make more disciples. So, and I'll say this too, not have imagined. The therapist asked us, what is your goal as a family, as it relates to your relationship with your brother? At that point, my goal was for us to just be able to be in family functions together and be cordial. And God has exceeded that expectation. Now, my relationship with my brother is not perfect, but I have learned I can't, whatever I feel like is wrong with him, I can't fix that, but I can fix me and how I respond to him. And I think that has made all the difference in our relationship because I'm not on a collision course for correction. He got his Baptist finger up. I'm gonna let you speak in a second.
Is that what that is? Oh,
It's a Baptist
I
finger.
had no idea. Look at me.
uh,
I've been
but
trying.
not to be on a collision course with constantly correcting him, but really and truly, like let the Lord correct you, and the rest is gone. It's gonna follow. Go ahead, sir.
I was gonna say, I also want to make something clear because it can seem like I was just flashing out and didn't really like give you as many flowers as I think you deserve for the growth that you showed and are, because I told you and I meant it so many times after. I was like, I feel like we're actually talking to each other. Like you ain't talking down. Like I have an opinion. I say something and will see you enact something. And I'm like, oh my God, she listened to something that I said and did it or wanted to do it. And it feels good and it was healing. And I think what happened is I think the wall of our spiritual life and what I guess we would consider our personal lives, that wall got broken down because I've never had no issue praying with you or talking about God or whatever. But like the way we talk on this podcast about our walk and actually walking, I think that the argument in a lot of ways broke down a wall that we didn't know existed between we're all walking and we're trying to
Right.
walk together. We all walked on our own path, which is, the fight of all centuries is just like for three people who want to walk their own path, one person who walking their own path is taking care of the other two paths. In mama, in the sense of like her path is be so intrinsic with us that she don't have her own path sometimes. This, Beverly, is true. But
It's that codependency, child.
like not realizing that in that codependency and individualism that's gonna cause conflict
Right.
because we're all supposed to be moving this way. Where are you going? And then it's like, where I want to go. Well, you shouldn't do that. And then the other person goes and it's like, well, I'm gonna do it. And it's like, but what, and it's like there was not enough boundaries, too many checks and balances that didn't make sense or didn't serve us, that we were able to break down with that and kind of understand what our roles are.
And
Like,
I'm gonna say
yeah,
this too. It's not unique to our family. I
no,
think it happens in many, many families, and people don't want to address it. You just go along to get along,
yeah.
and that's why you frustrated.
Though that first therapy session, he was just like, I I don't think I've ever seen something like this. In terms of
Yes,
our
he
dynamic, that was
yes,
hilarious.
he was very
So
like concerned and like, and even if you don't give me my roses, brother, I'm gonna tell you who give me my roses, my therapist. And be like, you know what? A lot of people come to therapy, but they don't do the work, and you have been doing the work. Like you are
but
really
I
like
mean,
you are doing it.
but you're a hard worker, and that's always been something that nobody at any point in any situation had to question, needed to question, should be questioning, and I don't question. The only thing that I, at that point ever had an issue with was like whether or not you saw me as somebody that's capable. It's the reason why I was able to accept my calling is because in that moment of God using you, I was like, this person that I think highly of also thinks highly of me and thinks highly of me in enough space to let me know, because by my knowledge, she's an expert of these things. She's seen a lot of preachers. She's had to go to a million funerals with my mother, so she's seen so many people's different styles and things of that nature. What makes me somebody like, oh, you think I can be in this realm, the realm that like I know you be in, and like there's no joke, there wasn't no laugh, it wasn't no sideways, nothing. It was this confidence boost of, yeah, I see Rome up there for you too. Just go. And like, I think your growth in understanding how to nurture versus this is how I nurture. And same thing, like I'm working on those things too. Like I learn so much more from you now than I ever have because I'm able to see the steps. It's not me seeing like a finished product in the way that I would see a lot of different things, but it's me seeing the process of how hard you work, the time you put in, the effort that goes on with that, the spiritual references and things that you keep close to you while you're doing it because you're not doing it separate of God. You're walking with God through each and every one of these processes. And I think that's something that I'm very appreciative of because now I'm able to see what the boss is doing because we're all on that corporate level versus feeling like a worker who ain't gonna never know why the stock investments are this way. So
So I'm gonna say this. So I'm gonna leave it here. But guess what, guys? We're definitely not finished talking about our disagreement. I'm excited for us to do our next episode because I get to tell you how I feel about my brother's take on our disagreement. So I really want you guys to tune in. Hopefully, you got some nuggets from this podcast that are helpful for you, helpful for your family life, or just your relationships in general. Um, and that you are open to receiving whatever the Lord had to say to you through us and through our disagreement. I mean, anybody that really truly knows us knows that this was not a simple disagreement. Like it was knockdown, drag out. We were about to get physical disagreement. It was not something light. It was not something airy or laughable, but God was able, because we were willing to do the work, God was able to mend our relationship. And now we're sitting on a whole podcast together. And this is not tricks and gimmicks. This is real life, 100% honest. Like this is what it is. And I pray that in each and everybody's life that God continues to blow your mind and he does exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think, because this is not something that was in my ask, but I think it's definitely a blessing. It's definitely what we needed in our family to help us grow. Um, and so my prayer is that you guys can be obedient to the Lord. It's not always easy and it doesn't always feel good, but in the end, it works out for your good. Um, these are the ties that bind people.
and we thank y'all for joining us. Thank you for allowing us to have a little bit of an extended episode. This is just one of those topics. We have certain topics that we go and have to break down in a certain way. And I appreciate your patience and understanding of that because God was working through us to show like there are still things and emotions that are going on, and it's the walk isn't something where it's like we tell y'all about a blog post and that was the end of it. It's not
It's
like it's
continual.
continual. So we will continually make sure you understand that that's what's going on with your walk with Christ. Is this continual? We're not always going to get it right. It ain't a perfect relationship, but we're building towards a better relationship and through a perfect Christ who sustains us.
Amen.
So there are blog posts Sunday through Friday over at BibleStudyGirl.com. The podcast drops on Saturday, so make sure you listen. We are currently, as you can hear, doing the blog recaps, which gives us some time to kind of explore things from our present perspective and where we were in that time and how far we've come. If you want to hit us up on socials, you can go to Twitter at Bible Study Girl, the number 2, on Instagram at _ Bible Study Girl. Like and follow our Bible Study Girl Facebook page, as well as hit us up on our email at BibleStudyGirl2019 at gmail.com. And
You can also
remember,
message
oh,
us. You can also message
yeah,
us on Facebook on the
yes,
Bible Study Girl page. One of us will respond to you. Sometimes
immediately. Trust me. And remember, guys, it's not the worst times in your life. Well, sometimes those do preach.
it
That
is.
sometimes those things do preach.
They do.
It's
They
not,
preach
they
hard.
preach hard. It's not the things you missed. It's not the person you. mm, this is wow.
That's a hard one for you. They all
Oh
preaching
man,
today.
they all preaching today. Let's see here, y'all. It's not the pencil that preaches. I'm gonna just start doing inanimate objects for the rest of the time. But they can preach too if you not gonna
They
cry. If you
can.
not gonna cry out. But y'all get what we doing. I don't know why I'm doing this like y'all don't know. It ain't the pencil that preach. It ain't the screwdriver that preach. But we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching.